about the paper application with you, and just give you some high points. I wanted to remind folks who don't know, that the current MBR that folks are used to using, the current application, has been redesigned. Oh, yes. So when I say MBR, I'm talking about the medical benefit request form for folks who aren't familiar with this application. So I just wanted to let you know that to be compliant with the Affordable Care Act and to ensure that we're asking all the appropriate questions that we need for eligibility through the ACA, we've worked very closely. Staff from the Health Connector and Mass Health have been working with our colleagues over at CMS to ensure that we were able to create an application that could in fact replace the existing one. But I have a couple of points just around, practically speaking, what people need to do now if they're going to use a paper application, and also what folks should, when folks will be seeing this brand new one. So I wanted to just say that if you are in fact assisting a consumer right now, so if somebody is seeking coverage prior to January 1st, they can either complete the brand new application that will be coming out shortly or submit the current medical benefit request form. The new application is going to have this yellow, it's not a sticker, but it's actually this big yellow box on the front page talking about how important it is to answer questions in Section 4. These questions are needed to determine eligibility for Mass Health Essential or for Commonwealth Care. So if somebody is seeking coverage right now, it's really important they complete those questions. Going back to the current medical benefit request form, though, if you still have those applications in your office, those current MBRs will be accepted until December of this year. Then beginning on January 1st, the new application must be submitted in the old MBR, the medical benefit request form, will be obsolete. Can't use it anymore. If the old MBR is received after January 1, it's going to require further follow-up to ensure that we are getting the appropriate information that we need so that we can calculate modified adjusted gross income properly. So again, if you have the old MBR after January 1, please do not use it. And let's see. With this, just again on these couple of notes, as well as the visual for the yellow box, if you will, that information is in the member transition slides that we had presented earlier this week. There's a hyperlink to it on the MTF website.
And MTF?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. The MTF website, folks, so it's called the Massachusetts Healthcare Training Forum, and EOHHS and the Health Connector have been working very closely with UMass Medical School to host quarterly statewide trainings. These are the in-person trainings that a number of you attend. Some of you may be new, so I just want to make sure that that we're able to alert you to not only this training opportunity, but as we mentioned earlier today, we're going to really follow up at these in-person events, conference calls as needed, really to support all the new information we've been sharing with you today. So if you have new staff at your office, please have them sign up for the MTF email listserv, and you'll get really important updates throughout the year. Okay. And then the other thing I really want to really stress, I mean, we tell you about the paper application, but whenever possible, if possible, we think it's really important to use the online application. So right now, if someone's seeking services right now, use the current virtual gateway system. It's probably the most efficient method of getting someone into health, subsidized health coverage. And going forward, use mahealthconnector.org to apply for benefits. So the paper application is always available to you. There are, as folks know, there are instances where it is just definitely necessary. We're really trying to encourage using the systems to get folks in coverage as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Nikki. So this is Mary McGowan again. So I'm going to take the next 10 to 15 minutes and sort of walk through with you voter registration. And it sounds like at least some folks from a question we had earlier are sort of familiar with voter registration. And so this is just a reminder of what we're asking you to do. So there are slides for this. So on slide 2, I have laid out an agenda. And I just want to point out that so we've asked you and your organizations to help us provide voter registration assistance to any consumers that you help apply for health insurance. So, and all of you and your organizations agreed to perform these duties as part of the agreement that you signed, and is also in our policy document. It references it. So I'm going to tell you what your roles and responsibilities are. I'm also going to just show you a voter registration form and how to use the form, and then what an applicant would need to complete this form. So on slide 3, you should be able to, after completing this training, provide guidance for completing and submitting a voter registration form, and then also document voter registration appropriately. So on to slide 4, which talks about the certified application counselor roles and responsibilities for voter registration. So I want to just emphasize to y'all that if you're helping someone with a paper application, then you should be asking them if they want to register to vote. But if you're helping them with the online application, we actually have built this into the system. So at the end of the signature page, it should actually show a person that if they would like to register to vote, here's the link and they can download the form and do that themselves. But if you do help someone with a paper application, then you should be asking them if they want to register. So, so basically what you need to do is ask an applicant if they want to sign up to vote. You can explain, this is also key, explain to them that whether or not they register to vote, it will not affect their application for health insurance or dental benefits. So if the person that you're helping wants to sign up to vote, then we just ask that you explain how to fill out the voter registration form, but actually let the applicant fill the voter registration form out themselves. We also are asking that you document that the person either accepted or refused to register to vote, and indicate that that the person does not believe that someone has interfered with their registration process. Next, we're asking just to make sure that certified application counselors do not coerce anyone to register to vote. Please don't persuade anyone to make any particular voting choices. Also, you're actually not responsible for determining someone's eligibility to vote. We're just simply offering to help someone register to vote. And then finally, the certified application counselors, we're asking you to mail in the voter registration form. So the forms are actually, it's a one-page form front and back. And on the back side, it actually says, send this to your appropriate town or local election official within 5 calendar days after the person completes the form. So you would just simply have to fill in the town and stick that in the mail. So we're also going to provide you with a form called a declination form. So this is how you can document whether the person accepted or refused to register to vote. And I'm going to go over that in more detail on slide 8. So moving on to slide 5. So slide 5 shows the voter registration form up close. So this is a form which in Massachusetts is administered by the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And as I said, it's a one-page form front and back. I'm sure some of you have probably seen this before. But it has 14 fields for a person to fill out. And you can see the image on the front of the form that's on the slide. I just want to note that at the bottom of the slide, are the filing deadlines. So you can just reiterate to the person if it's a few days before an election that these are the filing deadlines. So on slide 6, I'm going to go into more detail on the 14 fields. So this is basically how to use the form. So on the first question, it just asks to check off which boxes apply to the applicant. So the first one, are you a citizen of the United States? And will you be 18 years of age or older on or before Election Day? Then the second field, it asks for the person's full name. And in the next box, the person's former name. The next box asks for the person's address, where they live, and then the address where they receive mail if that's different. Number 6 asks for the person's date of birth. Number 7 asks for the person's driver's license, Social Security number, or none if they have neither. Next, the person's phone number. And then I just want to point out the next couple of fields are important for your purposes, but field number 9 asks for the person's party affiliation. Again, I just want to highlight that you should not be persuading people to pick a party affiliation. 10 asks for the person's address where they were last registered to vote. Field number 11 asks that if the person received assistance completing the form, that the individual who helped them print his or her name and address and put that information in number 11. So that would be you. So if you've helped someone fill out the form, please put your name and address in field 11. For field 12, it just asks for the person to read the oath. So if the person needs help reading it, you can read the fill out to them. Otherwise, have them read it and then have them print the date and sign their name in 13 and 14. So this form is it's available on the Secretary of State's website, and it's available in not only English, but also Spanish and Chinese. So I think actually at the end of this, slide 14 gives you a link to where you can download the form in all 3 languages. So on the next slide, that's titled What the Applicant Needs to Complete the Form. So basically, and this is just for your knowledge, but part of this you don't have to tell them, or you don't have to tell them. You have to tell them this, but you don't have to actually determine their eligibility to vote. So the first one is that in order for them to complete the form, they should be a U.S. citizen, and they should be a Massachusetts resident who's at least 18 years old on or before Election Day. But that, again, is not for you to determine for them. They do have to understand the form that they're filling out in any of the languages that it's provided. In order to be registered, they need to complete the form, obviously in a legible manner, and they must provide their personal information, including their full name, address, mailing address, date of birth, driver's license number, or Social Security number. And then they must sign their own name. So as I mentioned before, the declination form is on the next slide. I believe that might be slide 9 for folks. So this is a form that we will provide to you, and it helps you document how someone has either declined to register to vote, if they want to register to vote. And so Part A asks the applicant I'm going to quote now, if you're not registered to vote where you live now and you are eligible to register to vote, would you like to apply to register to vote here today? So the person can answer yes, no, or already registered where I live now. And it then asks them to sign their name and date. You're going to keep that first part of this form. And Part B is for your use, and it allows you to keep track if the person registered to vote, did not register, or is already registered where they live now. Part C of the form is the applicant copy. You can cut this off, tear this off for them to keep, and it basically just explains for their records that they, I'm going to quote from the form, are applying to register or declining to register to vote will not affect the amount of assistance that they will be provided by this agency. So it goes on to tell the person that if they believe that someone has interfered with their right to register or declined to register to vote, that they may file a complaint with the Secretary of State, and it directs them on how to file that complaint. So please keep copies of the declination form for your organization. So that's really it for the formal part of the presentation, but I was going to walk through some of the assessment questions just to make sure that everyone understands the key messages. So I'll go through these fairly quickly. So the first question, does the CAC have a responsibility to ask the applicant if they want to register to vote? So obviously the answer is yes. So a CAC has the responsibility to ask the applicant whether they want to register to vote. Second question, once the individual completes the voter registration form, how many days does a CAC have to send it to the appropriate city or town local election official? The answer is C, 5 calendar days. And the third question, when signing up for a QHP or qualified health plan, who should receive the declination form for voter registration? The options are A, applicants declining the opportunity to register to vote, B, applicants accepting the opportunity to register to vote, or C, both. So we want you to use the declination form regardless if the person actually registers to vote or not. So with that is, the next slide is the summary. So hopefully now you're able to provide guidance for completing and submitting the voter registration form and document that appropriately. So there are resources on the next slide, and please download copies of the voter registration forms to have available. And they are available once again in English, Spanish, and Chinese. So I really appreciate you sitting through that. I know some of you are familiar with the voter registration form already, but we thank you and appreciate your assistance with this.